Hi there, and welcome back to 355 Code. Today I'm going to be showing you a really cool website called HackerRank, and we're going to be solving a challenge together from this website. Before we dive into the challenge, I really just want to give you an overview of this site. So we have several sections. One is Prepare, which is different challenges that you can do in all different kinds of topics using different kinds of coding languages, and it's basically to practice problem solving and just starting to think like a web developer and like a programmer. There's also an area for different kinds of certifications, and you can also compete against other programmers. And it's a really great way to just establish yourself and maybe even prepare yourself for some of the questions that you might see in a job interview, if that's what you're thinking about, or just to challenge yourself in creative thinking and problem solving. So today we will be solving a challenge from the algorithms topic. And as you see, after I select a topic, I have lots of different challenges to choose from here. And today the challenge that we're going to be doing is this insertion sort. And the reason I want to do this problem today is because this concept is also a very important concept. And also this website has several challenges ranging from easy to hard, revolving around the same topic. So this will actually be a series of videos where I'll take you through different levels and we can kind of compare difficulties. So this is really just the first and easiest of the problems. So we can really just understand how these challenges work and start to build up our skill set. So let's take a look at the insertion sort challenge. So you can see here on the left side, we kind of have a description of what the problem is. And here on the right, we have where we are supposed to solve the problem. And one interesting thing to take note of here is that on the top, you can select different languages. So here I have selected JavaScript, which is the language we're going to be using to solve this problem, but you can also choose other languages if you have another preference. And basically what we're supposed to do is to run our code, to write our code right over here. And then we can test by run code and submit code if we think that we have the final answer. So let's take a look at the challenge. So here we have a short introduction about the importance of this challenge and what we're going to learn here. And I'll try and sum it up for you. And basically what we're going to be doing is sorting a list. So what we have here is an array. So we have an array here. You can see that part of it is ordered. So 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 4, 5. And 3, you can think of it as a new number that we're putting into this array. And now we need to sort it to make sure that 3 is in the right place. So we're having ascending order. So it would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 instead of having a 3 here at the end. And the way they want us to do this is store the value of array 4, okay, the last addition to the array. So we need to store that value. And now we need to test lower index values And now we need to test the lower index values successively, okay, from 3 to 0. So index 3 would be 5 here, then 2 would be 4. So we want to test and see, okay, is 5 larger or smaller than 3? Okay, if 5 is larger than 3, we'll copy 5 to the last space. So we'll have here 1, 2, 4, 5, 5. Okay, and then we'll test the next one, and so on and so forth, until we arrive at the number that is smaller than 3, and there we will insert 3 right after it. So let's take a look at their example here on the bottom. So we have an example, n equals 5. N is the array length, okay, or how many items we have in the array, and they start at the rightmost index. So here you see 5, okay, we stored the value of 3, and then we checked it against 5. Since 5 is larger than 3, they copied 5 over to here, to the last part of the array, and moved on to the next one. And they did the same thing with 4, and then they tested against 2. 3 is larger than 2, so they inserted it instead of the 4. And now we have a sorted array. So as they say here, this is not necessarily the simplest way to sort an array, but it's something that's called a brute force approach, and it's just very step by step, and it's basically what we'll need to start building these skills of understanding sorting using JavaScript. And let's just take a look at the description of the function. So basically, insertion sort 1, that's the function we have right over here. It'll take 2 parameters, n and array. So n is, as I said, the length, size of the array, and the second is the array itself. Okay, and then what they want us to return is to print each step, okay, the interim, okay, basically these steps here that we took to arrive at the sort and the final array. Each one should be on a new line, and it should be basically in this format here, which as you see is not an array, but just really a list of numbers, and we'll talk soon about how to reach at that point. Now I think we have enough information to really get started on the problem. So let's take a look here at our function, and let's really do this in a step-by-step manner and really break down the problem. So the first thing that we were told to do is to store the value of the last item in the array. So before we do that, I'm really going to declare some variables, okay? Because I don't want to be manipulating n and array directly, but I want to be manipulating some new variables that we'll declare here in our function. And we're doing this here together, so you'll be with me through all the challenges that I encounter, bugs that I encounter, and we're going to be working out this problem together. So let's start with declaring these variables. So the first variable I'm going to declare is an array. We're going to call it toSort, and this will really just be equal to the array that we get here from the parameters. The second thing that I'm going to do is to declare another variable, I, which is going to be used for the indexes of the array. And this will actually be equal to n minus 1. And why did I choose n minus 1? Because as you know, the indexes of an array start from 0, whereas n is the amount of items in the array, so it'll be 1 larger than the index of the array. For example, if we have 5 items, like the example here on the left, then the 5th item in the array has the index of 4. Okay, so I will really represent the indexes of the array. So now what we want to do is we want to store the last item in the array. So let's just call that storage. Okay, it's going to be a variable called storage, and it'll be equal to toSort I. Sorry, this needs to be square brackets here, and excellent. Okay, so now storage is basically equal to the last item in the array, so we're storing that. So in the example here on the left, that would be 3. And if we want, we could even just write here 3, okay, from the example. And we can write here on the side, let's say, for example, n equals 5, and array equals 1, 2, 4, 5, 3. Okay, and this might be helpful for some of you. And you can also write here, for example, let's say 4, and here you can even put the array itself or whatever you'd like. This is basically just so that you have some real values that you can be looking at next to your code, because sometimes when you're thinking too abstractly, it's hard to move forward with the problem, and you really need something tangible. If this doesn't help you, you don't have to do that. And now basically what we want to do is we want to test the values in the array from the end to the beginning and make a comparison. So this, if you have some experience with coding, you'll know this is starting to sound like a loop. Okay, and this is a loop that's going to be running as long as storage is larger than the number that we are testing against, right? So while, okay, we're going to use a while loop here, and while storage is bigger, and we're really starting our test from I minus 1, okay? But since that would kind of complicate things for us, what we're actually going to do is add an equal here, okay? If it's bigger or equal to, and then what we want to is to sort I, okay? So while storage is bigger or equal to sort I, and I remind you here that I starts off, okay, this is why it's good to have our examples here. It starts off at 4, okay, so basically it starts off here with 3. So our while loop will start by comparing storage to storage. So it'll compare 3 to 3, and 3 will be equal to 3, so our while loop will execute, okay? And that way we know that our loop is going to be executing at least once. And then we know that as we go through this loop, each time we're going to want to take 1 off I, and basically you could do that by just writing I minus minus. Okay, what exactly we're going to be doing in the loop, we haven't decided yet, but we kind of built the structure of our loop, and now we know that this will run correctly. So now what we want to do is we want to compare storage to the item. Okay, so that's what our loop is doing. And now if this while loop executes, then we want to replace, okay, we want to replace to sort I, okay, with to sort I minus 1, okay? So let's take a look and see what would happen on the first time that our loop runs. Okay, so the first time, storage is equal to storage. Okay, so what does it do? To sort I, so 3 should be equal to 5. So basically we're writing 5 here instead of, we're writing 5 here instead of 3. And then we compare 3 to 5. 5 will be too big, so we take 4 and we write it here instead of 5. Okay, and then we compare 3 to 4. 4 is going to be too big, so we take 2 and we'll write it here instead of 4. And then we can compare 3 to 2, and 3 will be bigger than 2, so we're going to write, so then this while loop will not execute. Okay, so basically what we need to do is decide what will happen when we exit the while loop, okay, when the while loop is done. And that'll happen in this example when we hit 2, okay? And at that time, okay, we want to, so at that point, I will be equal to the I of this 2, which will be 1 in this case, because it's the second item in an array. And then at that point, what we want to do is we want to sort I plus 1. Okay, so we don't want to replace this. We want to replace 1 to the right. Okay, to sort I plus 1 should be equal to storage. Okay, and this should be the end of our code. Okay, but we actually we want to console. Okay, because we want to keep a record and see what's happening. So let's console.log. And each time we're going to be wanting to take a log of toSort, okay, of our new array. And here as well, let's console after everything is done. So we can basically just copy this right over. And great, so we have code. We think it might work. Let's try running it. And our code is processing. Okay, so we got the wrong answer, as expected, because I knew our output was not going to be coming out as we wanted. But let's basically see what happened here and try and figure out where our mistake is. So let's take a look at our output. So the first line, and again, we're just comparing the numbers inside here, not the formatting. We'll deal with the formatting after we're sure that our logic is correct. So let's take a look at what's going on here. So we have two outputs. One is the first step here. So that's probably what's happening here inside of our console log. And the second one is the initial array. Okay, so let's take a look at our code and try and figure out why we are not getting what we expected. Okay, so basically the first thing that I can spot here is that I made a logical mistake here with storage and toSort, because basically what we want to do is we want to see if storage is bigger, is bigger or smaller than what we have in the array, and only if it's smaller than the item do we want to shift them over. So basically this here, this sign here needs to be the other way around, because basically our while loop was only executing once. Okay, so let's run our code again after that change and see what our output is. Excellent. So now, as you can see here, we have more than one output for the while loop. Okay, and let's compare it to the expected output. So and the first line looks good. Again, only comparing values. The second line looks good as well. Third line looks good. Fourth line, we have a problem. Okay, because we actually don't want to have a fourth line like this. And the reason that this fourth line is happening is because of the logic of our function, which I explained earlier. So basically, we want this line to never happen. And as soon as the comparison happens here between 3 and 2, 3 should just be copied over to here without 2 being copied over first. So let's take a look at our logic again. And let's try and explain it in plain words. So if storage is smaller or equal to toSort I, then we replace toSort I with toSort I minus 1. So let's take a look at what would happen at the point that we're talking about. So if 3 is smaller or equal to 4, then 4 will be equal to toSort minus minus 1, which will be equal to 2 here. So that's basically what we don't want to be doing. So in order to change this around, let's try and switch around the logic a little bit. And at each time, instead of looking at the value of I, let's take a look at the value of I minus 1. So if I put here I minus 1, and then we can also get rid of this equal sign, because basically we won't be starting from at this point, we'll be starting at this point. And what's our new logic say? If storage is smaller than this number, okay, then we will copy over this number to the next spot. So if, okay, if storage is smaller than 5, we copy 5 over to 3, okay? If storage is smaller than 4, okay, then we copy 4 over to 5. And then we're going to hit 3. We're going to hit 2. Is storage storage smaller than 2? No, it is not. So we exit our while loop. And then we're going to have to say that storage of I plus 1. So let's just see what I will be at the point that we reach 2. Okay, so let's do that thinking together. So we start here at, so first round that we do, I is equal to 4. Okay, so I is equal to 4. We make a comparison with 5. Okay, so now I is equal to 3. Okay, and then we go and we make a comparison with 4. The while loop executes again, so now I is equal to 2. Okay, and then we compare with 2, and we don't execute the while loop, so that means I is equal to 2. So let's take a look here, and if we sort I plus 1 equals storage, okay, then that will basically mean that the third in array 3, okay, or sort 3 will be changed to storage. But here what we want to do is we actually want to change sort 2, right? We want to change this 4. So this actually needs to change just to I. Okay, and this is another way that just using an actual values can help us think about the problem and solve it. Okay, so let's try running our code again with our new logic. And if we take a look here at the bottom, our output resembles the expected output. Okay, so from many points, we have already solved the problem, okay, because our logic is sound. And that's what's most important when you're solving these problems, is to make sure that you're thinking in the right way. And now that our logic is sound, let's just work on some of the formatting. So basically, we need to convert these from an array into just a row of numbers, into just integers with a space in between each one. And the way we can do that is basically by using a function called join. And this is just, you know, a JavaScript method. So if you're not familiar with it, you can look it up. Or if you're not familiar with how to do this formatting, then you could just Google, you know, how to remove a comma from an array or something like that. And eventually you would get to this solution. It's not the only solution, but it's a solution. And basically what this does is it takes an array and rearranges it according to a certain defined rule. So let's, instead of consoling sort, we're going to be consoling sort join. And inside these parentheses, we need to tell it how we want the items of the array joined together. So, you know, if we put just for example, an and symbol between them, it would take all of the items in the array and put them one after the other with an and symbol between them. And what we want between our items in the array is actually just a space. So we could just put a space between two asterisks, between single quotation marks. And then let's just copy this to join function over here. And let's try running our code one last time. I hope it's the last time. Great. Okay, so sample test case 0 is correct. Okay, and you can see that our output here is the same as the expected output. And what we can do now is try to submit our code, and this will basically run it against several more test cases. And when we see that they are all correct, congratulations, we solved the problem and we can try the next challenge. So if you followed through with us, great job. I encourage you to try some of these challenges on HackerRank by yourself. If you have any questions or if you want us to try a specific challenge in one of the next videos, feel free to comment below. And if you like this, please make sure to like and subscribe so you can see more content like this in the future. And I hope to see you next time.